Welcome to the Galactic Core Podcast. Here to review the latest films and TV shows from all your favorite intergalactic universes. Now, it's time to get your geek on. Please welcome your host, the prophesized chosen one. It's Andy.
Yes, here I am, the prophesized chosen one, or am I Lisana Gaib? I'm not really sure who I am yet. The prophecy is yet to be fulfilled. So, Dave, who do you prefer, Anakin Skywalker or Muad'Dib?
Ooh, what a question. What a question, and a very accurate one, because there's a lot of parallels there. You know, I like Muad'Dib. I like Paul Atreides, the Duke of Arrakis. I'm a big fan, even though I know he's not the hero. The character is so intriguing to watch, and I love it. But I can't go with the recency bias. I got to go with the greatest of all time. I got to go with Anakin. Can't disrespect Anakin.
Maybe things change after the third Dune film come out, because that's entitled Messiah, I believe, isn't it? So,
oh yeah,
we'll have to wait and see. I mean, we've been loving Dune recently. I'm not going to jump into any sort of review on it and stuff, but we've been talking about it a bit here and there, haven't we? I know you guys did your Dune Part 2 review, and obviously you're still hoping that it's going to be rocking the box office to win your box office draft for 2023. So
that's right.
I've been to see. Having never read the books, seen the original films or anything like that, I've jumped into Dune recently. I got to, I literally watched part 1 on like a Sunday evening, and then went to see part 2 on the Monday. So I got to see it back to back, which was quite good.
Nice.
And I've been to see it a couple of times since as well. So I actually enjoyed it the more I've seen it, because I understand more about it after seeing it and stuff. So, but yeah, part 3, this could end up being one of the greatest sort of sci-fi trilogies of all time, couldn't it? So.
Agreed. Absolutely. Can't wait. Yeah, I'm new to it too. I ordered the book. I just ordered the book a couple weeks ago because I never read it or anything. But now I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm going to check this out.
I am super tempted to get the books now and read them ahead of the movies and just see. It's always interesting to see the differences between the books and the films and stuff as well, isn't it? So, because my other half complains a lot about different, because she's a big Lord of the Rings fan like yourself. And she always complains about the difference between, say, the Hobbit books and the films, and the way that the films are trash compared to the books.
Massive difference there. Yeah, it's just on another level of things.
So, anyway, welcome to the Galactic Court Podcast. My name is Andy. I am your host, as always, as we are here to go through all things Star Wars, Marvel, DC, whatever else nerdy and geeky shit that I fancy talking about this particular week. Right now, we're in a run of the Bad Batch episodes. We've got a few to catch up on. We've got last week's episode, number 5, and the double episode drop that we had this week, episode 6 and 7. And as always, I'm bringing someone fantastic to chat to you with about this. Friend of the show. We've all seen him before. He's beloved by my audience. That's why he can never get away, and he's always asked to come back. I'm going to put him in a little cage and just bring him out when needs be, and let him out for his own podcast as well. But please, welcome to the show from Why So Sidious. It's Dave.
Oh. What an intro. What an intro. I'm flattered, and I'm somewhat nervous now, but I am happy to be back. It's always a pleasure to join you here, man. Thank you for having me. It's, I'll always be open for you. Our whole podcast is always open, ready to join, and it's always a blast when we collab. So I might carry a paperclip with me moving forward, just in case any cages are in my future. But we'll see what happens.
Well, I think let's just let the audience know how safe you are, because not only are we're in different countries, different time zones, as we discovered yesterday when we got our time zones mixed up, when we had actually planned to record. But we're here now. It's all good. You're safe in another country. I'm not coming to America anytime soon, because I don't want your presidents. You don't want our prime ministers. It's all good. We're in our own dumpster fires. It's okay.
We're in our own hell.
But how's things been going with your podcast recently? You've had some really big episodes since the turn of the year. So you've had your annual City Awards, which was really, really good. You've just released your 2024 box office draft, which was interesting to listen to and see who got what. surprised to hear when you guys were going through the projections for some of the films as well, how low some of them were for what I would have assumed was going to be higher up. For example, your fifth pick, I believe, was Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. That's something I probably would have had on my draft quite early on because I assumed that would probably do quite well, being a sort of nostalgic film. But you excited for your box office draft to see how it goes?
Yeah, we are. We've had a lot of big episodes because we covered Dune Part 1 and 2 with the cities too, and so yeah, it feels like we've had a lot of major episodes that have been really fun to record. The box office draft I'm excited for. The projections are all over the place. Honestly, that's one thing I learned doing all of that. We all came in with our own list and we're like, well, what was it projected? And we all had different numbers. So people are all over the place with these. Some people got, War of the Rohirrim bringing in 700 million. And I'm like, whoa.
Oh, that's the animated one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the animated one that they barely even marketed at this point. Like, I don't think it's bringing in $750 million, but it's always fun. It spices up the year as we go on, and it's a little competitive trash talk we get to partake in. We still got to figure out a prize and a punishment, but we'll get to that. But yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Is Caleb not going to get this tattoo on his forehead then from losing the 2023 draft?
Yeah, we didn't sign on it, so we'll see. We're talking with our lawyers to see what kind of strength he's got on that argument. We'll see what we can do there. But yeah, he got last. I'm pretty sure I'm taking it for 2023. Dune's going to take it in, but after that draft, Caleb's team is stacked for this year. He's got a lot of strong movies going, and I got a lot of risks. And JD's pretty solid too. It'll be close.
Well, we don't want Caleb to get any saltier. He's already pretty salty still over the Ahsoka series, City Award stuff. So we don't want him. We don't want them to release an Ahsoka film and then be getting salty that it's not going to make any money. So
we get a little vindictive on our shows. So we hold grudges sometimes through episodes. I've definitely last year's box office draft, I was pissed at both of them the whole time. Sometimes they just.
Yeah, but you don't need that much more for Dune 2 to rake in to really win it, do you?
That's true. That's true.
And then you can lord it over them for the next year that you know what you're talking about compared to them. So,
Andy, that is the plan.
Okay, so we're here to talk Bad Batch. Seasons 1 and 2, how have you been feeling about them? Because obviously this was a show that one of those ones that some people were excited for, others are like, is it really needed? Because I think it was born out of the fact that people were asking for more Clone Wars content. And obviously we came back and got Series 7, which was when we first saw the Bad Batch. And so this show was sort of born out of that cry from people for a bit more sort of Clone Wars type content. And even though this isn't really Clone Wars, but it is obviously filling in a big hole in the story of what happened sort of post Clone Wars for us. Mm-hmm. So season 1 and 2 so far, how have you been feeling about it?
I didn't really care about this show when it first was announced. I didn't, that arc of the Bad Batch in season 7, it was all right. I wasn't crazy about it. I didn't really care much about it. And so, yeah, they announced the show. I was like, I'll watch it. It's Star Wars. I'll check it out, but I have no expectations. And by the end of season 1, I was like, I like the show. It doesn't have the peaks that Clone Wars did. It doesn't have the consistency that kind of Rebels did here and there, but it's got a darker tone. It feels like it's got a very serious tone as we go through with the score, the plot points of stuff, the cloning and the experiments on people and the darkness of the Empire Rising. And so I'm growing to like it more and more, even though the episodes aren't blowing me away. I'm still enjoying sitting down and watching it just because it feels like a cool little new intro of Star Wars. And there's a whole story to tell with what the hell happened to all of those clones. There were so many clones. And then when we get to New Hope, there's no clones. Maybe Rex, based on some fan theories. So, but there's something happened, what happened with the clones in the Empire. So I like the concept behind it.
Any particular kind of characters that have really stuck out for you over the first sort of couple of series? Anyone particularly in the Bad Batch that you've sort of I was going to say fallen in love with then, but someone that stood out and has endeared yourself to them?
Yeah, I started with Hunter, and I think as I've watched it more and more, I've gone away from him, and I think Crosshair is probably my favorite right now. He's got a lot of depth to him. I enjoy his story every time he's on the screen. Wrecker's always fun. He's comedic relief. And Omega's grown on me too. I didn't really care for her at the beginning of this, but she's grown on me. But Crosshair is probably my guy right now. What about you? Who you liking?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought Hunter was pretty standard, to be fair, as like a leader of the group. Because they've obviously got their own adaptations or whatever, their own special abilities in it, and they don't seem to really ever lean into what Hunter's is. We saw it a little bit in season 7 of the Clone Wars and maybe season 1 of the Bad Batch. But since then, they barely ever lean into what his abilities are, as much as the rest do anyway. So it's just really bizarre that they sort of put him as the leader and then never explore anything with him. And he's just this generic guy that battles between trying to do the best for the group, but then doing the best for the clones as well, which is the overall arc for all of the clones anyway, pretty much.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed Crosshair. I didn't enjoy it when we had chunks of like season 2 where we didn't get to see him and it was focused on the others. Because I think what is good, we'll get into it in season 3, but I think what's good about Crosshair is that, especially season 3, is that this series is better when it includes Crosshair. Some of his episodes in season 2, especially that the episode with Cody, where Cody sort of leaves by the end of it, was really good. Obviously, that episode where Crosshair goes to that snow planet and he has that whole thing with the clone soldiers there, and he brings them back, and then it just showed him how disposable they were to the Empire, and he kills that Imperial officer, which gets him imprisoned on Tantis. All that sort of depth, and those episodes are some of where Bad Batch has been at its best so far. So the depth that Crosshair gives this show sort of almost overshadows the rest of them, to be fair, in a way, because they kind of had to put Echo to the side in a way, because a lot of people just compared Echo and Tech to being very similar, even though we sort of love Echo because he's our Clone Wars boy as well. But he was sort of always going to go off with Rex, I think, as well. So that was always going to be pushed to the side. Tech being dead is obviously like he was just a tech guy, sort of that you could almost describe as being a little bit on the spectrum in a way, and that was just sort of someone that was okay, but again, I think the whole thing that's molded and evolved these characters is the way that they've dealt with Omega and the way they'll individually deal with Omega. So like Hunter's obviously supposed to be the dad. You got Wrecker, who's like the fun parent. Tech was always like the teacher, making her read every single manual and stuff like this and learn every single thing. And then, as we've seen in the most recent episodes, Crosshair is then like, she's like, I thought Hunter was bad, and Crosshair's like, I'm worse. He's like the overbearing big brother that will never let you out of his sight. And we never, and I don't think we ever expected that, especially from their interactions where he's always like, leave me the fuck alone. Just get away from me. I don't want you near me. I don't want to talk to you. Piss off. And ever since she basically broke him out, he's been like, has the amount of respect for her seems to have gone through the roof, and he seems to love Bactra as well. That's probably been one of my favorite additions to this.
He kind of does.
Bactra the Hound.
Yeah.
No, he's always sort of giving him a little stroke.
Yeah. It's a great point about their. Gosh, why am I missing the word? Their interactions with Omega, though, the way they each deal. That you're totally right. That's been the way they've kind of defined these personalities and these clones more so than just who they are as clones. And I fully agree. I think that's why I fell away from Hunters, because he was a cool leader, and then after a while, it was like, okay, he's just another clone, but he has a bandana and a Rambo knife. That's pretty much the only thing. But we haven't really seen him do it. He's just the leader, and so it got a little one-dimensional there. But no, it's a great point about their relationships with Omega that totally shapes who they are.
And then we get to season 3. So it was an interesting start to this series, I felt, because normally the opening season of any episode, especially something maybe like this, you're expecting a big dramatic episode, lots of action, and generally that's always the thing. You've got a few big action scenes, a bit of drama going on. And this season opened kind of on a darker note in the fact that it was quite a calm episode, but it showed obviously the life for Omega and Crosshair being on Tantis, and just showed maybe the bleakness that was going on in that particular base for those characters and the rest of the clones there. So an interesting open to this series. So how have you felt about the sort of the opening 4 episodes of this series?
Yeah, so totally agree. Not a lot has happened, but I've enjoyed it. Like the first, I think 3 episodes came out, and when I sat down and watched the first, I immediately watched the next one because I just, like you said, there wasn't a lot of dialogue. It was just a lot of images, some interesting shots, the score, the ominous tones, and just walking through. I just like the style of it. It was a different type of feel to it. It felt more adult. I like Dr. Hemlock as the villain. He's very ominous. I think he's a pretty solid villain. Yeah, I like the start of it again, but there just wasn't a ton to like you had said earlier, like to fill an episode of discussing certain things about it, because not that much has happened. But I'm still weirdly enjoying it.
It's been enjoyable, but up until the last couple of episodes, I think, as I mentioned to you, I think it's been kind of predictable in the way they're going about it. So this whole overarching story of Omega being the one whose blood is receptive to midichlorian count being binded to it. It was nice to have certain things like, Project Necromancer being name dropped, which obviously we got name dropped in the last series of The Mandalorian. And I think the thing about this is it raises questions that I hope do get answered in this series. Maybe they don't because they've got other things planned, but things like we know Project Necromancer works because Moff Gideon tells us that they were able to perfect the whole thing of getting clones made that have Force abilities, and the midichlorian count binded to them. So we want to see what was in those tanks that Hemlock and Palpatine were looking at, because they were talking about Project Necromancer and they opened these things and got to see them, and we never got to see what was inside. The question remains: do they have Grogu already? Because that's the M count donor that they had been previously using.
Never even thought
to
of
me,
that.
I was like, do they have Grogu yet? Because obviously, we see from Order 66, he escapes with Keller and Beck on the Nabooian cruiser, and then we don't know what's happened since then. Presumably, we're going to get more flashbacks in either the Mandalorian film or Season 4. I know that they said that Season 4 maybe is up in the air now, and it might just be the film, but we still need answers to what has happened to Grogu in that stuff, because we know he gets captured by the Empire at some point. It's just, when did it happen? So do they have Grogu already? Do they basically? The question has now remained into. I think we're going to get into our mid-season theories later, so I'll save the rest of the conversation for that because I've got some interesting ones for that. But in terms then of last week's episode, so we've got episode 5, The Return. So this was going to be focused, as we always knew, on primarily Crosshair and Hunter, and them sort of having a go at each other and then repairing their relationship, so to speak, which is pretty much what happened through the episode, and Crosshair gaining their trust back a bit. So they return to the planet of Barton 4, which is where Crosshair obviously fell foul of the Empire by killing the Imperial officer after what was, as we mentioned earlier, dramatic episode. So again, maybe a slightly predictable episode in terms of what was going to happen. We knew that they were going to butt heads and then make up. So any particular thoughts on this episode?
There was a couple things. It wasn't a bad episode. I thought it was a cool little move by Wrecker. It was classy that he brought him out the old armor, kind of like a peace offering.
Yeah, that was nice.
But it was also kind of cool because you know that Crosshair kind of clicked there. Like, okay, so they didn't fully give up on me. They didn't forget about me. They couldn't throw that it shows that they still considered him their brother, even though how far he had fallen off. So that was a cool little moment. And we get Crosshair admitting that he didn't fully understand who the Empire was at this point. And so I would have liked to get that more of that conversation between Hunter and Crosshair there. But unfortunately, we had something that keeps happening in the Bad Batch, and that is a random ass kaiju just pops up out of nowhere and they got to run away from it. And, it was fine. It was just like I caught myself thinking, I feel like I've seen this scene happen before in the Bad Batch. Like, I feel like this has happened multiple times where a monster broke out like this. But, it was an alright episode.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. It would have been nice to see more of a conversation between Hunter and Crosshair and really get into it without them feeling the need to kill each other, so to speak. I do always love this trope, though, when someone's been away from a group or defected from a group, and then they come back into it, and like you said, they give them the old armor, they have the sheepish look on their face of, oh, you kept it for me. And then there's always that shot of when they walk out wearing it for the first time, and they're always acting like it's really tight and like it doesn't really fit that well anymore. And I'm like, Crosshair's been in prison for months and months. He would have lost weight. That armor should be fitting better than ever before.
Great point.
I don't know why it just makes me laugh. I'm like, that armor, he's not like he's put on weight. He's not Wrecker.
Right.
So, but it's always good to see the Bad Batch sort of almost reunited in a way. Obviously, minus Tech at the moment. But it was kind of funny with Echo at the end when he's chatting to Omega. And he's like, "Well, there was no blood this time after they chatted, so that's an improvement." So that was pretty much a standard episode, to be fair. But this week's episode, a double episode drop, episode 6 Infiltration and episode 7 Extraction. Based on, because obviously we don't really get any synopsis for the episodes too far ahead of time or anything like that. So when I'm looking through the episodes list, and based on the episode names that we get, I've sat there looking, going, okay, what's going to happen in these episodes? So you had like episode 5, The Return. I was like, oh, is this when we get to see Ventress return? And
I forgot
like
about
that.
her.
God. Infiltration, Extraction. Or my other theory possibly could have been that the return was the fact that it's revealed that Tech was still alive.
Yes.
Infiltration, Extraction being that they go and get him and bring him out.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some other theories about that, which we'll get to later on. But this episode focused a lot on, obviously, Rex, Echo, and, well, not so much Echo, I guess, but Rex and Hauser, the return of Hauser, who we all assumed was maybe gone before. Good to see him return.
Yeah.
But focused on him, their little clone band, and their base. And it was really good. I thought it was a really good change of episode. And in honor of the return of Rex for these episodes, I've got a little something to show you, which I know that you've seen online that I've posted about.
Bring it up.
But people all over the world have been getting these over the last week. So, oh, hello.
God.
For those that are only listening to and not watching the episode on video, I've just brought out the brand new Black Series Captain Rex helmet.
It's beautiful.
Got this delivered last weekend. It's got some nice sort of battle scarring on it as well, and stuff like that. So, because I was expecting it to be a very clean helmet, like the Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet, for example, is very clean. There's no battle damage or marks on it or anything like that at all. But this bad boy.
I like it. I like that blaster.
Gorgeous.
The laser scarring there right at the top. I like that.
Just on the top of the helmet. But this helmet is fucking massive.
It looks like it.
Absolutely huge. I've got the Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian helmets, and they're a decent size. They fit on fairly well. They're not too big or anything like that. The Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet and this one are fucking huge.
It's a little too big
for
you.
Must have had massive heads because the amount of I've not got a small head, to be fair, and when I pop these on, it rattles around.
Oh my gosh,
like pretty badly. So
it looks big.
Yeah, I just thought. It's fucking
pretty
big.
large.
But it's absolutely gorgeous.
That's awesome. I'm jealous.
To be fair, the only one I've not put on my head yet is you can see just above my head I've got my Vader helmet as well. That's the only one I've not actually tried on yet because I was worried that I might get stuck in it. And I don't want to be Vader forever. No offense.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be smaller.
But I just thought since it was a turn of Rex, it was a good time to be a bit of a geek and just show that off for the audience.
Dude, I love it. I tried to buy one of those a couple weeks ago because it was some clearance sale, and I kind of knew it was a little iffy on Instagram, and I went through it, and I was like, clearance sale? Hell yeah, I'll get some Mando helmets then. I'll grab one of those and that, and then, it didn't work. Thankfully, I didn't get scammed, but it didn't work, so, good news.
Well, I got mine from Amazon, to be fair, because I had pre-ordered it through Hasbro Pulse. But then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, it popped up on Amazon for about, if I do the conversion in my head of pounds to dollars, it popped up on Amazon about $70 cheaper.
Wow.
And so I just took the chance and cancelled my order from Hasbro Pulse and ordered it through Amazon instead.
Absolutely.
And it stayed the same price and it arrived. So, all good.
Nice, man. Yeah, I got to get me a couple
fine
right
addition
there.
to my collection.
There you go.
Okay, so episode 6 and 7 then. So, episode 6 starts with the return of a couple of people that we've seen before. So, Senator Singh from Raxus. For those that don't remember, Raxus was like the capital planet of the Separatists during the Clone Wars, and he's secretly meeting with Senator Chuchi. Why is the name of their planet gone out of my head? And I can't see it on my list either of what I just said it was. That's annoying. Oh, Pantora. That's it, isn't it?
Yes.
So from the planet of Pantora, and obviously Rex and his clones are providing a bit of extra security. But then they're one of these rogue assassins that the Empire have put together. We know that from previous episodes that obviously it's a clone that they've conditioned and forced into service, so to speak, in this way. He turns up and tries to bring him down, but they manage to stop him and in the end capture him. This episode was an interesting one for me because I loved seeing this little band that Rex has put together. I'm hoping that this wasn't the whole of his operation, because they previously maybe made it seem that he'd actually been recruiting quite a lot of clones to his cause. Yeah. And then it turned out that there was like 10 of them.
Yeah.
So I am hoping that there is a few others dotted around the place, and it wasn't just them, because that was pretty easy to decimate. Otherwise, one standard clone assassin came in and took most of them out. So you'd expect more from, but it was also good in this episode to see the different armors as well. Not 100% confirmed what different ones were, but they looked like there was obviously maybe some 501st in there, maybe the 187, like the purple ones, and a couple of others. I thought some of the names were familiar, like they kept mentioning Greer, and the name was stuck in my head for some reason, but I think I was getting that confused with Gree, which is the clone trooper that Yoda chops the head off when he tries to kill him in Order 66. And stuff. But we got our boys, we got Rex, we got Echo, we get Hauser, and I think it's in the next episode we get a flash of him, but we even get to see Gregor very briefly as well, which is cool. I hope to see more of Gregor at some point in the series, because Gregor's a bit mad and a bit crazy, and we love that. But what were your thoughts then on episode 6? Because they capture this clone assassin, and they take him back, and they're obviously wanting to grill Crosshair as well, because they want to know a bit more about the Tantis base. And then they realised that, that this guy had this puck on him that shows his targets, and one of them being Omega. So bringing them all together, the Bad Batch and then Rex. So, your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I loved it. Like you said, it was just so cool seeing those clones together again. It felt nostalgic because it's been a long time. Even season 7, that didn't have multiple different factions of clones. The last time we saw something like that really was like season 5 of Clone Wars and before, and that's been a while. So it was really cool to see them. Great animation too. But I failed to mention that earlier. But this show has very clean animation. I love it. It looks beautiful. And so seeing these different clones, I believe we got Nemec and Fireball. Nemec was a part of the group who broke out. He's been around for a couple of seasons of Bad Batch working with Rex, and he was in the Clone Wars. I believe he died in this one. Or shoot, maybe that was the next episode. I don't know. But so, like you said, it was great seeing them, but I found myself being like, man, that was a bummer, just watching them die. Like, I hope they weren't the last of the group. Like you say, he's got to have a bigger network. But no, I really enjoyed this whole episode. And it was pretty funny because obviously the talk of social media with these spy things, there's been an image of that special spy trooper, and everybody's like, that's either Tech or Crosshair before the season dropped. And then when we get our first reveal, they immediately pop his helmet off, and it's just a regular clone. I was like, oh, there goes the theories. But there's still more of them out there. And I'll hold off the rest of my thought until we get to our predictions moving forward. But I thought it was cool. I enjoyed the episode. I like the details with these spies. They have something placed in their teeth, like some type of capsules, which I'm guessing is equivalent to the spies who would have cyanide capsules in their teeth in case they were captured to kill themselves. But it was a cool little concept here. These untraceable assassin clones.
Yeah, it's a little like electric shock thing, isn't it? Because we saw it before when Rex took one of these ones out in previous
Oh,
seasons.
yes.
Because they extracted it, didn't they? And they were talking about it. But then they got these invisible trackers inside them as well that can't be detected by
Yeah.
normal instruments, which is all very cloak and dagger, isn't it? And very
Hmm.
plot armor-ish.
Yeah.
But then I thought what was good is that when the Bad Batch arrive and they're sort of questioning this clone assassin is how he reacted when Crosshair walks in the room. And Crosshair
Yeah.
kind of shits himself a little bit, and he's like, "Holy fuck, we need to get out of here." And it's like, okay, so what secrets are you going to tell us about Crosshair then? Because it
Yes.
seems like there was something going on. Because we know that they probably did try to turn Crosshair into one of these guys, but as he mentions, being defective sometimes worked in his favor, and they weren't able to condition him the same way.
Hmm.
But it made me think as well as like if all these like because they've got a few assassins in the bag, it seems.
Hmm.
And if this one reacted to Crosshair this way, that maybe it wasn't just the fact that they tried to turn Crosshair into one of them. Maybe he helped train them as well, because there's got to be a little bit more to
I
that
got that
story
feeling.
than just that. So
Yeah, I
um,
totally got that feeling. I was worried. I thought, I don't. Did you get the feeling that maybe Crosshair is still not the good guy we think he's back to being for a second? Did you? Because I kind of felt that for a bit. I was like, wait, could he be double crossing them right now? And then by the end of the episode, I faded away from that thought. But when that whole reaction there, I had the panic of like, oh, he better not be. He better not be doing a double play here.
no, I think we're safe on that front, to be fair. But it is interesting to know that there is probably a deeper level to what was going on with Crosshair when under the control of Hemlock on Tantis. So,
Mm-hmm.
do want to see a bit more about what's going on with that. But
Yeah.
towards the end of this episode, because it was pretty standard for the most part in terms of the assassin turns up, he manages to infiltrate the space pretty damn easily, and like. Always, always does make me laugh, and we're always told that the clones are like the best of the best. Even like the bad clone soldiers are still pretty good compared to say stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one clone assassin manages to plant bombs everywhere, infiltrate the base,
Just waltz
take all
right
of them
in.
out sort of one by one, and then blows the place up.
Mm-hmm.
Kills the other operative. Although I skipped over a bit, that what was maybe interesting is that earlier in this episode, when we did see after the dudes got caught, and then we see Scorch on Tantis, the clone commando, and he activates the next clone assassin, and he's like, this is going to probably play into our theories a bit later on, maybe when we chat about that. But I was going to be like, he's like, why have I been activated, or whatever he said? And there's something going on there with that, because I'm like, okay, so you don't have them all activated at once. You maybe got sleeper ones, or maybe they've been in stasis, and they've got to just bring them out and defrost them whenever the time's needed. A bit like Winter Soldier-esque
Yeah.
type situation. So, but yeah, and then we get to the return of another big clone
Yes.
trooper at the end of this episode. Commander Wolf arrives, big dramatic entrance in his reveal, but I don't know how you feel about Wolf, but personally, I think Wolf is a fucking dick. This guy pisses me off. He's always a grumpy bastard.
He is.
He may be loyal to his troops, and obviously, I'm not wearing this t-shirt, by the way, in honor of him. I should just say it's just a random t-shirt I happen to pick out that has the wolf on it. But it's just, yeah, I've never been enamored with this guy. In Rebels, he was a dick as well. Like, he fucking dobbed them into the Empire. I always felt that it should have been him that died in the final episode of Rebels rather than Gregor. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I've just never... Wolf pisses me off, man. But what are your thoughts on the return of Wolf?
No, that's absolutely fair. I don't really even have much memory. Did he have a big role in the Clone Wars in the early seasons? I have to imagine he was here and there, right?
I mean, he pops up every now and again, and he sort of had a fairly big arc early on in season 1,
right?
With him and Plo Koon when they're sort of stranded in the escape pods and stuff like that.
That's right.
And it was that whole thing of like, oh, no one's coming for us, so we're disposable. And Plo Koon, not to me.
Yeah.
Showing his love for the clones and stuff. So, but yeah, apart from that, he just sort of dipped in and out, didn't he?
Yeah,
but he had like the bomber planes with like the Wolfpack logos on the side and stuff. So
that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. In Rebels, he literally turned them in. So he was the guy you're like, this dick. Really, you're still like communicating with the Empire. But I think part of it when I saw him, I was like, hey, let's go. It's because of that, because I know in the future he's with Rex and Gregor. So we know this is a good thing for our heroes that this dude is showing up right now. So when that happened and we get in later, I was like, I'm pretty sure he's not gonna take these guys out, that he's gonna acquiesce to something here because he obviously joins up with them later. So I think my excitement was partially that, like, all right, we got a good guy here.
Yeah, no. But again, nice to see, I guess, for the most part, a familiar face return, especially someone that we know is going down a particular path of maybe rejoining our heroes, so to speak. So, yeah, we get Wolf turn up at the end of episode 7, and they're there to he's like, cool, we're going to go capture Omega on Hemlock's orders. So then we move on to episode 7. So the base is in disarray. Most of the clone troops have been killed. Our group of Bad Batch, Rex, Hauser, are making their way through the base to try and escape, and they're being pursued by Wolf and his men. And there's quite a good bit of tension here, I think, between the clone assassin and Wolf. It sort of lays out this thing that the assassins feel that they're above everything else and they don't have to answer to these people, even those that are technically above them in the chain of command, because they're like shadow operatives in a way. So I like to see that sort of thing, that Wolf's pissed off and he's like, who are you? What are you doing here? You answer to me. And this clone assassin's like, I don't give a fuck, man. I'm off. See you later. I'm going to do my own thing. So we get this little bit where they try and escape in that little box shuttle, whatever the fuck that thing was. And we get this whole thing, we've had it in the last couple of episodes, where obviously Crosshair's, due to all the experiments or whatever, the torture, whatever has been going on with him, he's no longer the sharpshooter he once was, and he's got this sort of the whole shaky hand thing going on. Because at different episodes, this clone assassin would have been nailed by Crosshair easily, or older Crosshair. And so the assassin shoots the ship down, they crash land, don't they? And they're then pursued by all the rest of them. And it leads to this final sort of duel between Crosshair and the assassin, with Hauser, of all people, obviously having doubted Crosshair's integrity earlier in the previous episode. He then sort of believes him here after Crosshair has said to him that he realised, just like everyone else does, that they're all disposable to the Empire and the Empire don't care about them. And this is why he's sort of come back. But yeah, they have that sort of final duel, and again, it just sort of shows that Crosshair is not quite the man he used to be, unfortunately, in terms of the soldier he used to be, I should say. And looks like he's about to get drowned by this dude before Hauser steps in, and he's washed off down the waterfall. And then we get that final but the final sort of face-off between the Bad Batch and Rex and Hauser and Wolf and the other clone troopers. And this is obviously just laying the groundwork for Wolf to join them in the future. Because Rex is obviously... It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think the first 2 episodes of the Bad Batch, when it seems like the clones were still being sort of controlled by the control chips in a way, in terms of the orders and how they went about things. And as these seasons have gone on, they seem to be going back to more cognitive thinking and maybe not being controlled so much by the chips, because Rex is able to talk them all down at various points. They're convincing other clones to join them without necessarily having to remove their control chips. And stuff like that. So he's obviously able to talk some sense into Wolf to let them all go, which, like I said, just lays the groundwork for the future. And then the episode ends with finding out that that this clone assassin, despite going over like 2 or 3 waterfalls, including a massive one, somehow managed to survive. He gets battered around a lot in these 2 episodes and doesn't break a fucking bone. Like, when the base explodes, he has this fucking shit drop on him, not hurt. Goes over waterfalls, nothing going on. This dude's like fucking immortal. Yeah, a pretty decent episode for this double episode drop. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I liked it. It was good. I enjoyed the whole gunfight chase scene. I thought, a lot of times in Clone Wars when we see these blaster battles, it's kind of just it could be the same scene they're putting on loop. You wouldn't know the difference because it's really just blasters flying back and forth. But this one felt different. It felt tense, like while they were chasing them, and we have Crosshair with the shaky hand trying to fight this guy, trying to get a right shot off, which is kind of frustrating too. Part of me is like, man, I just want Crosshair. I want him to just be dropping dudes. Like, I want the good Crosshair helping the good guys again. Now we got crippled Crosshair who can't hold his hand straight. And he still hit a shot here and there, but no, overall, I really enjoyed these 2 episodes. They went by fast for me. It was pretty upbeat, it was tense. I definitely have some theories on the assassin clone there, but I thought that too. The dude got wrecked and he just kept getting up and walking, like no limp, nothing. He was fine. I don't know what they're putting in those clones. But yeah, so it was a good episode and it was a good little ending there. Where Rex is telling Hunter, he's like, you need to find out why Omega is so important to the Empire. Like, there's obviously something else going on here. You need to figure this out. I was a little bummed that Rex didn't know what M count was. He said he had heard it mentioned before, but he didn't know. And I guess, he was only with the Jedi for a few years and they were in the middle of an intense war the entire time. So maybe they didn't have a lot of casual conversations about what an M count is. But, yeah, I was a little bummed. I thought Rex would know.
I think he probably does know, or he's heard it around anyway. But I guess it's one of those things that the Jedi probably don't talk about midichlorian counts too much because they're talking about the Force in general and more the spiritual side of it rather than the scientific side of it. As we know, until recently, they've not. The word midichlorian's only ever been mentioned once and never again.
Yeah.
So. And obviously, maybe the Disney era tried to step away from that idea with the Force as well. In terms of, we saw a little bit in the Ahsoka series about how they're treating the Force nowadays, which caused some controversy. And apparently, they're going to be diving a bit more into it in the Acolyte series as well, in terms of what the Force means and stuff like that. So it looks like we're getting a bit more of a redefining of what the Force technically is or how it operates within every individual. So,
nervous.
Yeah, I would still expect Rex to really sort of know what the M count stands for. It's probably something that does stick out when you hear it every now and again. So, but I'm just thinking, because he says you've got to find out why Omega's so important to them. I'm like, this is probably one of the most closely guarded secrets of the Empire right now in terms of this the Project Necromancer, what they're doing with it all. I imagine only a handful of them actually really do know. So these dudes can't even figure out where Tantus is. How are they going to figure out what the plot is with Omega? Like,
it's a good point.
It's one of the most closely guarded secrets. They're not going to be able to work that out unless they directly capture someone who's involved in the project. Do we get a return to Coruscant and infiltrate Sidious's quarters to get some information? It's just like, no, I doubt you're going to find this information out without going directly back to Tantus in the first place, and obviously infiltrating that base to find out what's going on.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and you said it because Palpatine said that. I think it was episode 2, which was one of my favorite episodes in this because Palpatine was in it, and he wasn't in it much. But every scene he was in, it was awesome because it was just total Palpatine lines and delivery. And at one point he said, this is the single most important thing to ensure the future of the Empire. Like, when the Emperor says that, they ain't talking about that. That is a high confidential, nobody knows about that except for Hemlock, the Emperor, maybe Grand Moff Tarkin, Vader probably doesn't even know about it. Palpatine probably didn't even tell Vader about this thing, because that's one more person and he has to keep Vader on a leash. But I don't know how the clones are going to figure this one out, but I guess we'll see.
Indeed, we will. This is pretty much halfway through the series now, even though the series still runs for effectively another almost 2 months. I mean, it stops right at the beginning of May. May the 1st is the finale. And I believe there's in about 3 weeks' time, there's another double episode drop. Which again has some interesting titles because it's entitled Identity Crisis and Point of No Return. So again, we're going to get a little sort of almost two-parter on that one, leading up and then to the final sort of 4 episodes. So I like the fact that they sort of plan this out to end right before May the 4th, because there's always some big things announced on May the 4th. So I wonder if anything will tie in with that.
On May 4th.
Well, I mean, May the 4th is a Saturday, isn't it? So it's
kind of awkward. That's fair. Just change the day by 4 days.
Drop an episode in the middle of the week. So it's like that. So we don't drop the podcast on a weekend. No one's interested on the weekend. So
it's true. We do usually avoid that.
I know we've both got theories for the remainder of this season. So let's get into it. Let's hit off with the top one then, because we've both been mentioning it. This clone assassin. I've got 2 particular theories. I think you hit me off first with your thoughts about it.
Yeah, so as I said, it was funny that when that one got captured and it was revealed just to be another clone, it was like, oh, there goes those theories. And then when they mentioned there were more of them, I immediately, when they brought this guy, they brought this clone in, I felt like, and maybe it was me, maybe it was in my head, but it felt like even the movements of this dude had very similar movements to Tech. I just, again, it could just be in my head, but like I was picturing Tech in his clone gear doing his movements, and some of the technical stuff the clone was saying about certain parts of the strategy. It just, I don't know. And we've already seen this man fall, however high he fell from when he died. And then we just saw him fall off a waterfall and survive too. But I think it's a pretty basic theory. I don't think I'm like going crazy here. I think everybody is expecting Tech to come back. And I kind of honestly wish he doesn't, just to really, make things have stakes. And that was an emotional death. So I'm hoping he doesn't, but I'm like 90% sure he's coming back. And so my guess, he's that clone spy. He might, or the, secret clone. He might not be. Maybe that's not him, but I feel like if it's not, he's going to come back in some other form.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my theories that I think everyone's been mentioning, that potentially it could be Tech. His voice was a bit different to the first clone assassin, in the fact that his voice was almost more Crosshair-like in a way, almost that sort of deliberately snaky almost type voice, which you could maybe associate with a Tech that has been conditioned and is now obviously more just single-minded to his orders and the way he wants to go about things rather than anything else. So the voice was kind of one thing that maybe put that in there as a potential. But my leading theory right now is that this particular clone assassin is Cody.
Okay.
Commander Cody. The last time we see Cody was in episode 2 when he did have that episode with Crosshair where he questions things more and more through the episode, and then we see them have that chat in front of like the wall of names or whatever of fallen troopers or whatever it was, and then we're told at the end of the episode that he's gone AWOL. Now we just assume that maybe he's realised that the Empire don't give a shit and he's deserted things and gone off on his own. But the other one to that is that maybe the Empire realised that he was going to defect pretty soon, and so they kidnapped him and they put him through the conditioning process and turned him into this assassin. Because it was, again, going back to that just little drop when Scorch calls him up and he's like, why have I been activated, or whatever he said. And I'm like, so this is where my theory bits in, that maybe they put them on stasis and just activate them when they're needed. And that we haven't seen him since then. He's been put in stasis after he went through his conditioning, and then he's been activated, and he's the one that sends off. And someone like Commander Cody would be capable, with a bit of extra training as well, of turning into someone that deadly and that can go onto a clone base, so to speak, and strategically, blow things up and kill the other clones quite quickly. So I think it may, and again, it leads into the theory of how this dude survives at the end, because why would you have just a random clone assassin survive if he wasn't someone that we kind of already knew? Which is why it leads into the Tech and potentially Cody theories, that the only reason this dude survives is because he's someone we know, and someone relevant to the group, whether that be Rex or the Bad Batch. So that's my theory anyway, in terms of who he is. So I lean to that maybe a little bit more than the Tech one, because this is what I'm going to lead into my next theory for Tech, is that the Empire are going to get frustrated in the fact that they can't seem to get Omega back. So Tech is alive. He was captured by Hemlock, and they use him as bait to bring out the Bad Batch and Omega. And this is how maybe Tech gets reunited with the group. So I don't know your thoughts on this, but yeah, I feel like they're going to use Tech as dangling him as bait to draw them out and try and recapture Omega when they can't do it normally.
Yeah, that's my other thought. If it's not the secret clone, that he's gonna be brought out in some other way, and that makes perfect sense if that's the case. I hope Tech isn't this secret clone. I like the Cody thing. I like that theory, especially because it's heartbreaking. Seeing as the last time we saw him speak, he was saying, "We're not droids. That's the difference between us and droids. Yeah. We need to make the difference. We need to make the decision of what's right and wrong. We can choose not to follow orders." And if that was him now, man, heartbreaking. But Yeah, I just think Tech's going to be showing up, man. I would be mind blown if he didn't show up in this season. So that's definitely the main theory moving forward. And you said earlier you were wondering if they were actually going to give us answers regarding Project Necromancer. And I think if there's no future Bad Batch season planned, I think this is the time to do it, because it doesn't seem, they're using this, and they've used Mandalorian to pad the plot of Palpatine that was so poorly received. And at first I was like, come on, dude, I don't waste time making that thing better. But I'm kind of buying into it now. You know, they've built up a really intriguing backstory to it, and this whole Project Necromancer and everything going into it. So I'm like, okay, you're doing it now. You know what? Maybe this does make the sequels better, like the Clone Wars elevated parts of the prequels. So I'm going all in. I hope they do give us some answers regarding Project Necromancer, and that at the end of this season we feel more in the loop as far as the whole Palpatine clone plan goes.
Yeah, I've had a few people be annoyed about this because they feel like this series is only really, or literally the entire Bad Batch 3 series is only served to fill in gaps for Palpatine and to make the sequels better than they were received and that they were. Let's be fair. Right. So I can understand some people's view. They don't want to waste time talking about a completely different group and just to fill in the gap with that. But when you started these things, you have to fill in gaps along the way. You know, if they're going to go back and retroactively tell the story, then yeah, why not do that? Why not make things that maybe weren't as well received better by backstory? Because backstory to me is always something that really does improve stuff. When you have a bit more attachment to the issues and maybe adding a bit more evilness to Palpatine. He was already pretty fucking badass and evil at this point anyway. But then adding this whole extra sort of backstory in that he had this secret Sith planet where he was planning where he was planning to live forever. Because that was basically the whole thing about Palpatine, is he never was planning on sticking with the rule of two. He never at any point planned on Dooku or Vader or anyone striking him down and passing it on to them. He was going to use Sith alchemy to live forever. And be the one that just ruled the Sith overall forever. So this was a dude that was beyond any other Sith for the last 1,000 years in terms of ability, in terms of foresight, in terms of just ambition as well. So filling in the backstory, I don't see how that's a bad thing, to be fair at all. So
no. I'm here with it, and yeah, like you just said, Palpatine even has a line to Anakin early in the prequels, which we just did an episode actually about best Star Wars quotes, because there's a lot of horrible dialogue in Star Wars, so we shined a light on the good ones. And there is a point where Palpatine says, "All who gain power are afraid to lose it, even the Jedi." And he is talking about himself just as much there. He has gained this power, and this man does not intend to ever lose it. Ever. That's his whole goal here. So yeah, look, I'll say I thought Rise of Skywalker was just a piece of shit. I mean, they just threw a bunch of crap together. I really didn't think it was a good movie. And I'm not that excited about the Rey movie either. And it's not against Rey. I guess it's just because I'm kind of soured on the future of that story there. I just am kind of like, I don't really care much at this point. But I'm here for this Bad Batch. For why not? Like you said, why not make it better if they're going to be doing this? Yeah, improve the product that's already out, fix things. That's that seems like a good reason as any to me. So I'm here for it.
Nice to hear that you did an episode on the good Star Wars quotes. I take it this particular quote was in there because it is obviously legendary and it deserves to be in the conversation of all good Star Wars quotes. But
it was one of mine for sand. Oh. It was mentioned multiple times. That one was not one of mine. Thought we were talking about the other one. No, we mentioned that one a few times.
I'm guessing this one may be in there as well for the right reasons, but
hello there.
You know, Andy, I feel a massive amount of shame coming on. I don't think we ever said that line in the entire episode.
Mate, I feel like a re-recording isn't immediately
Hold
needed.
on. Caleb might have thrown it at the very end when we were talking about quotes that just like "May the Force be with you" that are just quintessential Star Wars quote. I think Caleb might have thrown it in there, but I still feel shameful for that one. I
can't believe you didn't talk about that one.
Post editing is gonna happen.
We'll use the Force. That's not how the Force works.
Yep, that was in
Sorry,
there.
I'm just literally going through my media soundboard right
I
now.
love it. I love it.
Well, I'll look forward to listening to that episode then and critiquing the quotes. But
there you go.
I think one last sort of maybe theories or stuff we need to talk about in regards to the future of the Bad Batch is who lives and who dies by the end of this series. When I did my episodes at the start of this season, I put some out there in terms of my thoughts. Some of it hasn't changed in the fact that if Tech is alive, then we will get them back together, I think, for an episode or two, to have just the original group together again before shit kicks off. But I've always had it down that Crosshair will die in this series. He will make the sacrifice play or the martyr play and sacrifice himself for the rest of the group at some point. The question has always been then who survives, who lives on, because you're in that sticky situation that because the story after this has always kind of already been written, like what happened to them, where were they, if they were around during original trilogy and Rebels and stuff like that. Especially if Rex knew they were around, why didn't he come and get them to help with the rebellion and stuff, all these sorts of bits and pieces. So there's stories that still, they've got a lot to fit in the second half of this series in terms of answers, but I think I've heard a few different ones in terms of Hunter will die at some point as well, and maybe because of the connection that Wrecker and Omega have, that they survive and they maybe go to live on that island of Pabu for the rest of their days and just keep themselves to themselves. The wildest theory I heard recently, which I'm starting to think that maybe this is a genuine thing, is that because we know Project Necromancer does work, maybe Omega's the one that actually dies in this, and this kind of kills off any sort of residual ambition that the Bad Batch have to join this fight and to keep fighting. Because at the end of the day, maybe someone like Crosshair or Hunter or someone like that sacrifices themselves to try and keep Omega safe, but she's then still captured by the Empire, and they do what they need to do with her in order to move Project Necromancer forward. It was a pretty dark theory, and I don't see Disney killing off a kid in this show. But to me, it was a wild enough theory that it's been on my mind since I heard it, that she may be this could be a complete fucking massive thing, that she's the one that actually gets sacrificed in this series. And they end this series on maybe a slightly darker note than it being a happy ending.
I think that would be perfect. And I was totally rolling with it, thinking I could see this happening until you said Disney, and then my mind remembered, oh yeah, wait, this is a Disney animated show. They probably won't kill off the child main character, but show us you got some balls, Disney, do it. Not that I want her to die, but that totally makes sense. That because that explains, where the hell are the rest of them. I definitely think Crosshair is going to die. I think Wrecker actually might die, which will kind of break Omega. I think
my
that
wife
will
cry.
Sad one. Oh,
Wrecker
gosh.
is her favorite. So
oh, really?
She was. Yeah, she's already emotional enough as being pregnant, and I can't deal with her crying if Wrecker dies as well. So,
that's fair.
Just for that sake, Disney, please rewrite it quickly if you've got that planned.
Yes. Kill Omega, not Wrecker. kill the child.
Kill the child. Sacrifice the child. Do it. Do it.
So I think the only other option is a Rogue One ending, where they all go down in a blaze of glory, some explosion, some deal like that. Because, like you said, I don't think you can have them all survive. I just don't think it makes sense that they would never resurface again, even in Rebels. So I think something bad's got to happen. And I was just checking it real quick to confirm. So season 3 is the final season. They're not doing season 4. Yeah. This is it. So yeah, I would have to imagine that this is going to have a dark ending. I don't see this ending with a happy ending. Man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we're not going to know. We have to wait and see. But yeah, I don't see the whole group walking away. If they do, it's a cop out. It's even if it was just Crosshair that died, for example, I still think having 3 or 4 of them survive at the end. Even Echo, we don't know what happens with Echo in the future because he's not in Rebels or anything like that.
I think this could have a sad ending because Clone Wars Season 7 was an incredibly depressing ending, and that was still the same. This is still the same target audience, essentially. I mean, I know Bad Batch somewhat was a little bit more kid friendly at the start, but it's gotten dark, and that was a really sad ending. Score, everything, man. It was a real downer for the finale of the Clone Wars. So
I mean,
maybe Disney does have the balls.
I think they kind of had to get that way though, because the Clone Wars ends with like Order 66.
Yeah,
so there's no way to really
brutal.
skirt around that, and the control chips being activated. So can't
fair.
really sort of have a happy ending when all that shit's going on around them. So, what was the happy ending version? Is like depends on which side you're on, I guess. Maybe their version of happy ending was that the clones kill Rex and Ahsoka, and they all survive. Woohoo!
Yeah. Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru got a kid, got a healthy baby boy.
That's how they try to spin it at the end of. I still like. It still makes me laugh at the end of the fact that oh God, what's his name? I've forgotten his name. But the ones that get Leia, I don't know why their names have just disappeared out of my head. Senator Organa and his wife. Yeah. They just randomly show up with a baby girl one day, having not been through any adoption process anywhere, and just abducted a child from a different planet. It's fine.
Red flag.
So yeah, it always makes me laugh, and then because you could buy into the fact that Kenobi goes to a planet and gives the child to like the step family of the father of the baby, so to speak, if they've been killed off. But yeah, then the Organas just randomly turn up with the kid one day, and nobody in the political arena or anything like that questions it at all. Just
get a baby.
A bit crazy. Any final thoughts then on any predictions for the rest of the series?
Nothing crazy. I'm just excited. Final thought about getting maybe some more Easter eggs coming out of Mount Tantus, because it's been such an infamous thing in a lot of the novels, even in the original Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire trilogy. Mount Tantus is a big thing there. The Emperor has this mountain with this insane laboratory full of crazy experiments, and he has a clone Jedi in there. So it would be really cool to just see something that kind of nods to that part of the book there, even though it's obviously a totally different timeline. The Heir to the Empire is after the Empire has fallen. This is before, but I think that's the biggest thing I want to see some cool stuff coming out of Mount Tantus, other than the whole explanation of Project Necromancer.
Something just triggered in my head that literally I saw a couple of days ago, because I'm saying, do they have Grogu yet to be the midichlorian blood donor? There was a thing I saw that can't remember if it was at the start of this series or maybe the start of Bad Batch itself, that when they look on Camino, there is a Jedi being wheeled away, or not being wheeled away, but on a stretcher with like a tarp over them. So you just see a hand with a lightsaber. And we were told that this was not a Jedi that we'd previously seen. It was technically a brand new character, but they hadn't given them a name either. Like, apparently people working on the project knew the name of this Jedi, but it's never been revealed to the public. So maybe they Jedi that was killed, they took away and drained the blood out of it, so they have midichlorian count blood, and maybe a higher midichlorian count than maybe a youngling or a young Padawan or something like Grogu would be. And I don't know why. It's literally, I think it popped up on my TikTok a few days ago that Pablo Hidalgo had been saying that people close to the project knew the name of this Jedi, but it was technically a brand new character. It wasn't a Jedi that we'd seen in the Clone Wars or anything like that. But it just, for some reason, when he said about that and the fact that maybe a clone Jedi, it popped into my head that maybe this was the fact that they kept some dead Jedi in stasis and were just using them to drain their blood, and so it didn't decay.
Yeah. Well, that also triggers, we didn't really even talk about, but expectations for the rest of the season. Ventress, I don't know how she's going to come into play, or who she's going to be stacking up against, or how she's here, because she's supposed to be dead. Yeah. So I have no theories on that, because I'm stumped when it comes to Ventress, unless it's a flashback. But she's got her hair like she did in Dark Disciple, so I have no idea how she's going to be brought into this. But
it was a yellow lightsaber as well she had, didn't she, in the trailer? So we shall have to wait and see. I know my boy Clan Brandalorian is desperate for Quinlan Voss to show up alongside of her. He is desperate for him to show up. And we know he survives because he gets named
he's alive
and stuff. So maybe a little cameo appearance for him would be good.
That would be interesting, yeah.
So how that fills in with the Dark Disciple story, we'll definitely have to wait and see. But I'm excited to see how this series plays out. They've got a lot to fill in and a lot to tell us in these things. So I hope that they, from this point onwards, it is going to be straight fire storytelling and no sort of filler bits, because they told us that the first half of the series was going to be no filler. It was all plot driven episodes, and in a way, yes, but in a way, part of that has also been, just sort of side quests and bit, and nothing really going for it. Like episode 2, for example, when they're on that jungle planet with the clone cadets, it seemed like a bit of a side trek because they they got information of like the sector that the base was in, but not the exact location. It's like, well, it's been 5 episodes, we've heard nothing since.
Yeah, it's true.
So hopefully it's all just straight fire from here till the end, and it's going to be an emotional ride, and we'll see who lives and who dies, and that's going to be it for the Bad Batch after that. Mm-hmm. So, Dave, thank you very much indeed for joining us to have a lovely chat about all things Bad Batch and our nice little theories moving forward. Anything big upcoming for the Why So Serious podcast? I know you guys are going to be joining me for an episode that's dropping in about a month's time. I can start talking about this now, but I've got my anniversary episode coming up about the middle of April, a year since I started the podcast. It's going to be a huge episode. I've got Why So Serious, all you guys joining us. I've got Clan Brandalorian. I've got Lee from Lights Camera Ran joining us. I've also got Michael from Stark Wars joining us for an epic anniversary episode where we're going to be chatting about our favourite things in our favourite films in fandom, like TV shows and films of the decade so far, a few quizzes, and our favourite and worst films from like Marvel and Star Wars and bits like that. So going to be excited. We're recording that, I think, next week, but it's going to be dropping in about a month's time. But apart from that, obviously that's the biggest episode of the year you're going to be taking part in. We all know that.
Oh yeah.
But apart from that, anything big that YSO Cities have got coming up?
Yeah, no, but we're excited for that one. We've never done an episode with that many people in it, and it just sounds like a fun rundown. Like the whole thing just sounds like it's going to be a good time. So we're looking forward to that for sure. We did, like you said, we did a lot of our major ones that already dropped in this first third of the year. We have some more. We got to finish our Marvel rankings, so we've gotten that down all the way. We have 3 episodes left to do for that, so we've ranked about half of them at this point. So we got to pick up on that. We'll be doing some more comic reviews. We're covering E for Extinction, which is a comic about Cassandra Nova, who is going to be the villain of Deadpool and Wolverine. So we're going to get into that, touch on that a bit, do some Fantastic Four reviews. What else do we got? Like I said, I'm ordering the book, and Caleb already started it on Audible, so he's like 13 chapters in at this point. So I think eventually we're going to do a little episode comparing the book to the movie of Dune. But as of now, that's pretty much it. I think we're going to try to do it one a week, because coming in June, we got The Acolyte, we got The Boys, we've got House of the Dragon. We got a packed schedule coming up here this summer, so we might, absolutely have a slower period these next couple of months until we hit that ramp up.
I've got to get through all of that stuff as well, apart from House of the Dragon, because I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan, and I haven't watched season 1 of House of the Dragon. But The Acolyte, The Boys, I'm going to be doing, and I've got a baby coming at the beginning of August, so I've got to rack all this stuff out before that happens, because I'll be taking a little break for a month or two after that happens. So I'm hoping that none of these series go further than August, because I can't be dealing with all that going on at the same time. Because I'm like, sorry, love, you got to look after the baby for a couple of nights. I've got to go and record some episodes.
It's fair.
So hopefully that's all going to be done by then. But yeah, we've got packed summer coming up, and so a few things to fill in between now and then, not too much. I mean, because we're pretty dry on films this year, so it's going to be all about the TV series from summer onwards and seeing what we get later in the year as well. So, excuse me. A couple of big films that I know we're going to see, part of your box office draft. So I've got my tickets, so I'm supporting Team Dave in this. Sorry, Caleb, sorry, JD, but I've got my tickets for Ghostbusters next week. I've got my tickets for Kong Godzilla. So we'll have to see whether these films are any good. I might do a brief chat about them on the show. I'm also going next week to a 25th anniversary showing in the cinema of Fight Club. Nice. Fight Club's always been one of my favorite films, so that should be good to see that on the big screen. So
that's awesome.
But Dave, thank you for joining us. Tell all of the viewers that aren't already following you, and if you're not, why the fuck not? But tell us where we can find Why So Sidious.
Yes, you can find us Instagram, X, and TikTok, all at Why So Sidious Pod. We're on YouTube. You can find us there, Why So Sidious Nerd Podcast. We post the majority of our episodes full video on there. Every once in a while we have an issue and the the video gets sliced in two and we can't combine the two, or I don't take the time to do it. But most of our stuff is on there, and all of our episodes are on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, which dies in a month. Actually, it is no longer going to be a thing. But yeah, you can find us all there, and our link to everything's in our bios of all our social media pages. So feel free to give us a follow.
You will be able to find the links for their social media pages and podcasts in my show notes as well.
Beautiful.
As for my show, the Galactic Core Podcast, you'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Even though I don't know why I keep posting on Facebook, it's like fucking the dead plains of the world for our shows. But I still try and game a little bit on Twitch as well, although not very often because I'm lazy when it comes to gaming. I'm still just sticking with Battlefront 2 for the most part. But you'll also find my episodes on YouTube. Go across there. Give us both a like and a subscribe on YouTube, because we drop our episodes on there all the time. When 2024 is the year we're trying to ramp up on there. So I need to start doing a bit more on YouTube. I need to start dropping some shorts and stuff. So I'll still just drop it mainly on TikTok. But I need to get across on there. I'm not as lucky as Why So Serious that I've got a few of them that are able to operate all the different platforms individually. I'm trying to do it all myself.
It's hard.
So I'm lazy. I just need to be a bit more active and get these things sorted. So, but yeah, you'll find the show notes in the show notes, the links for all of our shows. Get on there, give us a follow. I'll be back soon to chat more Bad Batch, as well as a few other random bits and pieces I've got planning. I'm still doing my ongoing review of all of Star Wars. Clone Wars episode dropped recently. You can go and watch that, which means that the next big one I'm going to be doing is episode 3, which will be with Clan Randalorian, because we did all the prequel films together, and it is a big chat because this is a big one for the two of us. So that'll be dropping at some point soon. So in a month, I've got my anniversary episode coming up. Then after that, towards in the Bad Batch, May the 4th special that I'm planning out as well. So some big episodes coming up for myself. Please do tune in for these. It really means the world that all of you guys come and listen and watch the show. So that's it for this week. But until next time, everybody.
The Force will be with you, always.
Thanks for tuning in to the Galactic Core Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. But until next time, go get your geek on.